So today we are looking at the Calculate Linux 2024-09-06 version. So this is the latest version or the September ISO file about the Linux distribution. It's based on Gentoo Linux. So before going through all those things, let me first boot it. So here is the boot menu. So I'm choosing the English United States language, and you can choose the F2, F3, F4 and tab options. So with the F2 you should be seeing the languages, F3 for the video and F4 for other options. So I'm going to choose the English United States. So here is the Calculate Linux desktop, and the desktop environment right now we are using the KDE live DVD. So I'm running it on the virtual machine. So let me show you the F3 option. So first F2 and next is F3, the F4 and the tab is for boot options. So let me first quickly boot it in the live boot. So the booting process will take like 2 or 3 minutes. Usually this much of time it's going to consume, but it should be lesser, and also it's going to be a bit more. So I'm going to mention that as soon as the distro is booted up and the desktop layout is loaded. So it's based on Gentoo Linux, and the country of origin is Russia, and architecture is x86 64-bit. And the desktop environment you get is the Cinnamon, KDE Plasma, LXQt, Mat and Xfce. So these are all the options you get. So the booting process will take 2-3 minutes. So I'm just going to wait for it, and I'm going to mention. So I'm going to give you some hardware information of my virtual machine. I'm running it on the VMware with 60 GB of virtual disk and 8 GB of RAM, and my CPU is i5 1240p. So I'm going to give you a small information of Calculate Linux because it's still booting. So Calculate Linux is a Gentoo-based family of 3 distinguished distributions. The first one is Calculate Directory Server, which is CDS, is a solution that supports Windows and Linux clients via LDAP plus Samba, providing proxy mail and Jabber servers with a streamlined user management. The other one is Calculate Linux Desktop, which is CLD, is a workstation and a client distribution with a choice of Cinnamon, KDE Plasma, LXQt, Mat and the Xfce desktop. So these are all the desktop environments you get in the CLD. That includes a wizard to configure a connection to Calculate Directory Server. Calculate Linux Scratch, which is CLS, is a live CD with build frameworks for creating a custom distribution. So that's some information of the Calculate Linux. About the system requirements and all those other things, I'm going to mention it as soon as the desktop is loaded. So the KDE Plasma, I don't know what version is going to be because I didn't try or anything like that. I already made a lot of videos on the Calculate Linux, but I didn't make under 1 or 2 months, so it's pretty much very hard. I think we should be getting the latest version of the KDE Plasma, but here is our desktop layout. So we were talking throughout the video, so it could be maybe 1.5-2 minutes of a booting process. It's a bit lesser than expected, so it's under 2 minutes, I can say like that. So before touching anything, I'm going to show you the system monitor or the task manager to see how much of resource it's consuming. And also you should be seeing all the versions of the KDE Plasma version and the frameworks and all those things. So I didn't even change the display settings. As soon as you boot up, this is the resources. So it's consuming 1.9 GB of RAM, and CPU is pretty much, I already mentioned in a lot of videos, the version with the 6 point will be having CPU issues in my PC and also in some other PCs. So I tried in the virtual machines, I tried in the bare metal, and I tried in the live boot, I tried everything, and I still have this issue. So I don't know what is the cause. Some of the viewers also said that it's better to stay with the 5.27 version, but it's clearly up to you to test whether it's going to work it or not. So it's in my PC like that. So again, there is some difference when you run it on the virtual machines. Try to ignore this thing, and I'm talking about all the other distributions. So when you run it on the virtual machines, there will be some hiccups here and there in the virtual machines, because that's the case for in the virtual machines. And when you try it on the bare metal, the same Linux distribution, it will be a bit consuming less resources, and it will be having some smooth experience. So you need to have this information before going judging on something like a virtual machines will be having issues. So these are all the common things in the virtual machines, whether it's a VMware or VirtualBox, there will be some issues sometimes. So it's not 100% accurate, the resources. And the resources right now, it's consuming 1.9 GB of RAM. When you run it on the bare metal, it should be like a 1.4 1.5 GB. So there will be some difference, and also there will be some smooth experience in the bare metal. So that's how the operating system works. When you run it on the virtual machines, even if you have like a good hardware specs, you should be having some issues sometimes. So we can't say anything like that. So it's better to try it on your own and decide whether to use this Linux distribution or not. So right now it's consuming 1.9 GB, and CPU will be throughout the video with like a 90-95%. So I'm just going to make a video like that. So there are also other desktop environment. If you want, you can check that out. So I'm going to change the display settings. Before that, let's go through all those information. So KDE Plasma version 6.1.4, desktop environment KDE, frameworks version 6.5.0, Qt version is 6.7.2, and the applications. So application view is unsupported on your system. The history, so you need to run like a 60 seconds to see whether the graph is stable or not. And right now it's having like this, so I'm just going to ignore the CPU, and here is the RAM. And about the process, let's wait. So here are all the process running as soon as it's booted up. So I didn't even open any of the settings or anything. So this is the base resources, or the booting. As soon as you boot up, you should be seeing this much of resources. So let's change the display settings. Let's right click it, display configuration. So this is the latest version or the latest ISO file from the Calculate Linux. Let me change the resolution to 1920 into 1080. Click apply. Keep it. Let's go to the about this system. Here is some of the additional information. Graphics platform is X11. So even if you try with the other session, you should be also seeing the same issue. So in the CPU there will be same issues. And the kernel version is 6.6.32. So this is the latest, not the latest version, but this is the kernel version. So the latest version is 6.10.9 stable version. So I'm going to close everything, and I'm going to put the system monitor in the right side corner throughout the video so you can see all the changes. And I don't know why most of the Linux distributions use the Firefox browsers, but some Linux distributions uses the Chromium or Chrome browser. So I don't think it's going to be working properly, because the Chrome will be consuming a lot of resources. So even if you have like a 64 GB of RAM in the Windows, the Chromium or Chrome browser will be consuming most of those. So I don't know why they give the browsers. So I'm going to open the Chromium browser. So if we had the Firefox, it will be good. So you can install it on the on your distributions if you want to try this Linux distribution. So let's grab it like this. Let's make it bigger, and let's go to the official website. Before that, let's check the version of the Chromium. So you get the 128.0. I think this is the latest version. Let me close the tab. So you have also the search page here, or the search engine. So I'm going to change it to the Google. And let's click enter. You can directly type in like a google.com, and you can do that. I'm using VPN also. So let me go to the Calculate Linux website. Calculate Linux. Hit enter. So this is the link or the official website, or else you can just type in like a Calculate Linux as a search term, and you should be good with the link. Or else you can go with the www.calculate-linux.org. It will directly take you to the official website. So these are all the available things. You can go with the desktop, server, cloud, testing, and here is some of the information. So there is literally no release notes or anything, so you need to find all the information on our own. So we want the desktop, so just click on the desktop, and you should be seeing the desktop environments here, which is the Linux desktop, KDE edition, Cinnamon edition, LXQt, Mat, Xfce session. So here are the ISO files size, and also here is the Scratch edition and also the other edition which is scientific. So if you want to go through all those things, and if you want the other desktop environment, so if you want to go with the KDE Plasma, this is how it performs on the virtual machines. But if you still want to try it, you can try it, but you can go with Cinnamon, Matte or Xfce or LXQt if you want the lightweight. So choose whatever you want and click on download. So I downloaded the KDE Plasma, so I'm showing the downloading process. So always check the version of the ISO file, so whether you are downloading proper Linux ISO file or not. So 2024-0906 is the version name or the date also. So that was the information of how to download the ISO file. And when you search for the release notes, there is literally no release notes. If you go to the documentation, let me show you that. No information. So when you go to other things like forum, you shouldn't be seeing any information here too. So it's going to take a few seconds here. Let's check the forum announcement. And here we have nothing. So I'm just going to close it. Downloading closed. So that's how you need to download. So let me open the console. Let's make it bigger and let's type in some commands. So before that, let's check the version of the console. So you get 24.05.2. Let's try the neofetch. Hit enter. It says command not found. INXI-SV8, it says again not found. uname-a, you should be seeing the 6.6 kernel. So I forgot to show you the Linux kernel, available Linux kernels. So let me type in Linux kernel. So this is the Linux kernel website. So the latest version or the stable version right now is 6.10.9. And we have the version in the PC which is 6.6. So here is the 6.6 version, which is a long-term version. If you want any information, you can go with the releases and get the information there. So 6.6 is supported until 2026. So you should be getting 3 years of support. 2023, 10, 29. So its end of life is 2026 December. So here is also the RC7. Here is the stable version which is 6.10.9. So that's what I forgot. So I'm going to show that. So I already showed you. So the version is 6.6. So you get the long-term support version of kernel. So let's check the pre-installed applications which are available in this Linux distributions. Under development, you get these applications. Under the education, you get the LibreOffice. Under the graphics, you have like a GIMP, Venview, and some KDE applications. Under the internet, you get the Chromium browser and some KDE Plasma applications. Under multimedia, here is some applications like a Strawberry player, SM player, and audio player. Here in the office, you get the LibreOffice and some KDE Plasma applications. In the settings, you get the Calculate Linux update or the updater. And also in the settings, you get the Calculate console. And under the system, you don't get anything other than some KDE applications. Utilities, nothing. So you basically get most of the things are from the KDE Plasma desktop environment. Just a few applications, like 2 or 3 applications, are from the Calculate Linux. So you basically get the KDE Plasma desktop environment. So if you go and check in the official website whether to use this Linux distribution, it's clearly up to you to judge whether to use this Linux distribution or not. So you don't get any specific thing from the Calculate Linux other than some basic things here. So it's my point of view, if it should be a bit different for you. So if you ask me whether I'm going to recommend this or not, if it's other desktop environment, go with those other desktop environment. But it's if you go with the KDE Plasma, you should be having some issues. But always try it on your own piece, on your own, and decide whether to use this Linux distribution or not. because it's always a good to do your own research instead of watching someone's video and deciding whether to use it or not. So always try it on your own and decide whether to use this Linux distribution or not. So you get the latest kernel and also the long-term kernel, so it's a good option, but again it's clearly up to you. So there is literally no release notes or anything, so this is the latest version. And about the installer, let me show you the installer also. So here is the Calculate Linux KDE partition here. Let me drag it here. Let's place the system monitor on the right side corner. So let's open the installer. So there is some different installer in the Calculate Linux. Let me show you. So if you already know how to use this Linux distribution, you already know. I already made a lot of videos on this distribution. So language and locale, choose your language. Time zone, here are some advanced settings like a keyboard layout and also the hardware clock type. Click next. So here is the distribution. You can choose the KDE Plasma, and here are the advanced settings. So it's taking a bit of time to open the advanced settings. Filter by distribution. Here are some other desktop environments like a mat, Xfce, Scratch, directory server, Scratch server, media center. So choose whatever you want and filter by processor architecture, auto, x86 64. Install the newer image only. So if you want to check it, you can check it or else uncheck it. Click next. Here is the installation type. So the layout, the network settings, users. Here is the audio video update and start installing. So you need to get all the installation steps, and you can install it if you want to try it. So I'm not going to install because I need to make another video. And here is the KDE partition manager. So I'm going to do you a stress test, like opening a bunch of applications like a GIMP, Strawberry and music player, and let's see whether this distro will handle day-to-day tasks or not. So I'm going to open a bunch of applications. So we can switch the applications whether it's going to work on for a normal user or not. So you need to try the other desktop environment because it's going to say as like a 90-95% in the CPU because it has some issues. So don't judge by the CPU, always judge with the RAM and other things. So it's better to choose the other desktop environment, but if you still allow the KDE Plasma, you can try this desktop environment. So I opened a bunch of applications here. So let's try to switch the applications. So here is the home. Here is the small file manager kind of thing, or the home folder. So here are all the applications. So there was some issue when we open like a Strawberry application, the Linux distro will crash, but I'm going to do that test later. Before that, let's try to switch the applications. So every application is opening instantly, so I can switch all the applications instantly without issues. And also you need to understand that I have the latest hardware specs, so I don't know how it performs on the low-end PC. So let's open the browser. So we already have opened the browser, so let's try the Calculate Linux system requirements. Calculate Linux system requirements. So you just need to type in like that and you should be getting the hardware requirements. So let's go with the official website. So when you scroll it down, you should be seeing Calculate Linux Desktop KDE. So it says you need to have 1 GB of RAM, disk space 8 GB, swap usually not less than the RAM size, and CPU. Here is the CPU information. And when you download the desktop cinnamon, so it's very clear how to how hardware specs you need to have. So in order to run the cinnamon, you need to have same things. And for the LXQt, because LXQt is the lightweight desktop or the lightweight desktop environment, so it has you need to have like a 512 MB of RAM, 8 GB of disk space. And about the mat, you need to have same things. And about the Xfce, again same. So in real life, there will be some changes. Even if you have this much of resource, it's going to be having like a bit of lag or anything like that. So it's always a good option to always have double sizes. Like if they said like a 1 GB of RAM, always have like a 2 GB of RAM. If they said 8 GB, you need to have like a 20 GB, and some other options like a monitors and all those things. So always have double sizes in order to run these distributions. Only when it says like a 1 GB or 2 GB. But when the Linux says you need to have like a 8 GB of RAM, don't use the double method, because if you need to have like a 16 GB of RAM, it's better to run another operating system instead of Linux, because Linux distro is mostly for the lightweight or for the low-end PCs. So most of the users use Linux distributions for the low-end PCs, because it will bring back to the life. So that's the reason Linux is for a lot of users. So if you have like a 16 GB of RAM, I don't think most of the users will go with the Linux. People who love the Linux will try it, but if you have like a 16 GB of RAM, if the Linux distribution asks you like you need to have like a 8 GB of RAM and 50 GB of hard disk, no one will use those Linux distributions, because they will go for another Linux distributions, or they will completely change to another operating system. So there are like a few Linux distros. You need to have like a 8 GB of RAM and like a 60-70 GB of hard disk. I don't know what type of brain they are using, because if we had that much of resources, why will someone go with those distributions? They will go a lot of they have like a lot of distributions available in the Linux market. Instead of that, they will go with those Linux distributions, or else they will go with the current other operating systems. Like for example, there is a deep in Linux, it says you need to have like a 8 GB of RAM and also 60-70 GB of hard disk. I don't know why they are saying like that, because most of the Linux users will be running the Linux on the low-end PCs, because a lot of laptops will be can't run like a Windows 11 or some other operating systems, but they want to bring that laptop to life. So they uses the Linux, which has the latest version and also the latest kernel, and also which has like a 3-4 years of support. But there are some distributions who ask like you need to have like a 8 GB of RAM. So it's better always go with the stable versions and also well-known distributions instead of going with the fancy things. I always say that don't go with the fancy things, because the fancy things are never the best. Always go with the stability and always go with the well-known Linux distributions, and also the people's lovers, people who love a famous Linux distributions like a Linux Mint, Ubuntu, MX Linux. There are a lot of well-known Linux distributions which has good support like a 3-4 years, and also you can easily update all those things, and also it's well known from like a 10 years, so a decade. So that's a good option to go with. So there are a lot of well-known Linux distributions instead of these fancy things. So always go with the good Linux distributions, and always go with the stable and which has a support. Go with those things, even if it's like the animation may be not good, but if it is stable and also it has support, then go with those things. And if you watch like a tutorials, you can customize according to your wish. So you can do all the customization on your own instead of going with the fancy things pre-installed or like that. So it's always good option to go with the well-known distributions, and also with the stable and good support, and also with the latest applications and kernels. So that was some tip, and here are all the requirements of the Calculate Linux. So I'm going to close all those things. So let's check the versions of all the applications. So about KDE, about the partition manager, here is the version. Let's check the GIMP. So I faced some issue in the previous video when we opened the Strawberry application, but I'm going to first show you the application information and I'm going to check that. So here is the SM Player version. So I already showed you the Chrome browser information, which is 128. Here is the conversation. Here is the version. I already showed you the GIMP. Here is the Kmail and the LibreOffice. Let's check the LibreOffice version. So here is the version. So let's try to open the Strawberry application, and it still has the same issues. So you need to switch the desktop session. So I already said that tip in the previous Calculate Linux. So when you open the application, it's going to log you out. So it's better to choose other sessions or like other desktop environment. Maybe it should work. In the previous video, I also tried that, so it was working for me. So it tried to log me out. So the password should be same like a guest. Let me try to type GUEST. I hope this is the password. So that is the password for the live boot. So already mentioned in the beginning, I remembered somehow. Usually I don't remember basic things. So because I'll be posting 2 videos daily, it's pretty much very hard to remember whatever the distribution is. I specifically remember this thing, which when you open the Strawberry application, it's going to crash and it is going to log you out. So it's better to choose other desktop environment instead of this. And if it's going to happen same thing in your PC, then do let me know in the comment section. We can help other viewers to say it's better to stay away from the KDE Plasma and go with some other desktop environments. So here is all the things available in the Calculate Linux. So there is literally no release notes or anything. So that's the reason I showed all the application information and the kernel version you get. And also on the wallpapers, you don't get a bunch of wallpapers. You basically get the same default wallpaper and other from the KDE Plasma. And already I showed you the basic applications or the pre-installed applications you get from the Calculate Linux. So I'm going to end the video here because there is literally nothing in these distributions other than completely KDE Plasma desktop environment with just 2-3 applications added from the Calculate Linux. So it's clearly up to you to judge whether to use this distribution or not. So that was the video. Thanks for watching. Peace out. So I'm posting 2 videos daily. So if you want to subscribe, you can subscribe. Again, thanks for watching. Peace out.